So President Donald Trump was asked about Tucker Carlson, all the controversy around him, doing a very, how shall we say, unchallenging and fawning interview with Nick Fuentes recently. You know, it's one thing for, before I play the clip, I just want to say, it's one thing to do an interview with someone, which, you know, I think you can make the case that this guy's got a big following, Fuentes, so let's have him on and challenge what he has to say. But he didn't do that. He did when he had Senator Ted Cruz on, so it's the glaring double standard and the seeming laundering of his views, which Tucker Carlson is very good at, and then pleading ignorant, or maybe not ignorant, but just, you know, trying to say, well, look, I'm not just going to go after someone and attack them for an hour. That's not going to be a good journalistic strategy. Well, it seems a good journalistic strategy with Senator Cruz, so as a politician, it's just ridiculous. You know, Fuentes has a massive online following, and so to pretend that he's not in any way comparable to a politician in terms of being worthy of challenging is just, it's absurd, really. So in light of all of this, let's have a look at what President Trump had to say.
We may add a rand to the formula, yeah.
Mr. President, Tucker Carlson recently had a friendly interview with anti-Semite Nick Fuentes. Tucker Carlson. What role do you think Tucker Carlson should play in the Republican Party and the conservative movement going forward?
Well, I found him to be good. I mean, he said good things about me over the years. I think he's good. We've had some good interviews. I did an interview with him. We had 300 million hits. You know that. Look, I can't tell him. Will you let me finish my statement? You are the worst. You're with Bloomberg, right? You are the worst. I don't know why they even have you. We've had some great interviews with Tucker Carlson, but you can't tell him who to interview. I mean, if he wants to interview Nick Fuentes, I don't know much about him, but if he wants to do it, get the word out. Let him, you know, people have to decide. Ultimately, people have to decide. The mayor of New York, I will say, would like to meet with us and we'll work something out. But he would like to come to Washington and meet, and we'll work something out. We want to see everything work out well for New York.
You yourself had dinner with Nick Fuentes at Mar-a-Lago a few years ago. What role should he play in the conservative movement?
Well, I didn't know he was coming, and he was with, as you know, somebody, Kanye. And Kanye asked if he could have dinner, and he brought Nick. I didn't know Nick at the time. And he did. He came, and along with a few other people. He brought a few people with him. Meeting people, talking to people, like for somebody like Tucker, that's what they do. You know, people are controversial. Some are, some aren't. I'm not controversial, so I like it that way.
Now, I have to tell you that before some of you may rush to say, oh, he should be going after Fuentes, I have to be honest. My sense from watching this clip is Trump isn't actually just that clued up in what's going on with the whole Fuentes and Tucker thing. I don't think he's probably super aware of not just Fuentes and what he says and does. He clearly knows that this guy is on the far right, but it seems to me, my senses, it's just a gut instinct from what I'm seeing, that he hasn't watched the interview and he doesn't appreciate that Tucker's method was in no way challenging him, in no way, you know, exposing Fuentes. Probably because Tucker's very sympathetic to Fuentes' views, in my view. But regardless, I think that's why we're seeing this reaction here. This is not, you know, because he's suddenly become a Fuentes fan at all. I think it's pretty clear to me that President Trump is not aware of how the interview was conducted. He's probably just thinking, well, you know, Tucker and other people's approaches is, you know, let's interview people even if they're controversial and we'll challenge them. He's clearly not aware of that. He's probably not aware of the double standards of Tucker going after people like Ted Cruz and others, but they're not with Fuentes. So it seems to me like he's someone that's just not really clued in on the details, rather than necessarily someone that's suddenly changed his whole view and isn't endorsing people like Fuentes. I think that, to me, is pretty clear. So I think people should be cautious before suddenly making big judgments here. Whether or not, as president, he should be clued up in all of this, that's another story, another matter. Some might say he's got better things to be focused on. Others might say, no, this is a big part of the cultural war in America's conversation, and he should be focused on it. But either way, I think there is a clear rise of people like Fuentes and others being amplified on the conservative right in America. The irony is they aren't really conservatives, these people that are saying these horrendous things. They're in the fascist wing of whatever you consider to be on the right, where they basically meet up with the far left and it becomes a joint party. But to be honest, I have more concerns of the J.D. Vances and the others who launder a lot of this stuff. Trump, as you could see at the start of his reaction, is much more focused on just... I think, how this pertains to himself. So he says, well, Tucker likes me a lot, so, that's just what he's focused on. But I don't think that's primarily because he wants to gloss over anti-Semitism, right? Having said that, though, I do think that he can be quite unpredictable. And as I reported in another video recently, changing the Gaza peace plan, quote unquote, to include Palestinian statehood in there, and if that's got Trump's backing, I think that's really concerning stuff, to be honest. I want to show you, in contrast to people like Tucker and others, the incredible moral resoluteness of people like Senator Ted Cruz. I want to show you a clip of him in a second, but before we do, quick message. A quick update before we continue. I've got some big news for you. We've finally decided to bring JTV in person. I'm planning a speaking tour across America where I'll be talking about everything from the big issues the Jewish people and Israel face today to Judaism's deepest ideas, and of course I'll be taking your questions. If you want me to come to your location, just click the Google form link below in the video description and I'll be in touch. Let's have a conversation. So let's now go to a clip of Ted Cruz, which really shows the contrast of what we need to be seeing right now. Have a watch.
I think we are at a time for choosing. I think we are at a fundamental crossroads as conservatives, as Republicans, as Americans. 10 years ago, anti-Semitism began rising in the Democrat Party. And the Democrat leaders looked away. They didn't do anything. They thought, okay, this is just a fringe. We don't have to worry about it. It rose on the campuses. It rose with college professors who were Marxists, who hated America, who indoctrinated young people. Then it began rising in the halls of Congress on the left. And again, the Democrat Party did nothing. Today, it has all but totally destroyed the Democrat Party. There is a real and cognizable pro-Hamas wing of the Democrat Party, and the remaining Democrats are terrified of them. You looked at the parade of so-called mainstream Democrats who rushed to New York to endorse Comrade Mondami. That is what we're facing. However, in the last 6 months, I have seen more anti-Semitism on the right than at any time in my lifetime. It is rising on the right, and it is dangerous. And if we look away, if we refuse to denounce it, if we are scared of it, it could destroy the Republican Party just like it has destroyed the Democrat Party. I think we have an obligation to stand up, to speak out. Mark, you're doing so fearlessly, ferociously. You are speaking the truth.
Hey, Sean Hannity.
And you know what's really sad is that part of the reason people are doing this and turning on Jews in Israel, going alt-right, is not even because they necessarily believe it, because many of them used to be super pro-Israel. It's because they just think that's where the tide is turning. It's moral cowardice. Moral cowardice for popularity, votes, clicks, money, views. And Senator Ted Cruz has really been consistent throughout. So to him, we owe him a great deal of gratitude and respect. A quick message. We all hear about the Palestinian displacement, or Nakba, of 1948. But there was another, even greater displacement that we haven't been told about. Nearly 1 million Jews were expelled from Arab lands at the exact same time. Watch the trailer for our new and absolutely essential documentary called The Real Nakba. And if you want to watch the full film, just click the link below in the video description. We've all been told about the Nakba, the Palestinian catastrophe of 1948. Around 700,000 Arabs were displaced. But here's what you're rarely told. That displacement didn't come from some Jewish plan for genocide. It wasn't Israel's goal. It wasn't Israel's desire. It happened because Arab leaders launched a war of annihilation. They tried to wipe out the newborn Jewish state, vowing to drive the Jews into the sea. And in the chaos of that war, people fled. Many because their leaders told them to, promising they'd return after victory. But the term Nakba was originally used to describe the fact that the Arabs lost the war, not the displacement. Now the term describes the displacement of war used as a political weapon against Israel. But you know, there was another Nakba you haven't been told about. A catastrophe rooted not in the fog of war, but in the clear, deliberate desire for persecution and genocide. It happened at the very same time, and it led to even more displacement. Yet most of the world has never heard of it. Over 850,000 Jews, more than the number of displaced Arabs, were driven from their homes across the Arab world. Communities that had thrived for millennia were uprooted overnight. Families stripped of citizenship, of property, of dignity, assaulted, expelled, forced to flee with nothing but their faith. Why? Because they were Jews. Because Israel dared to exist. Because the Arab League openly orchestrated it, drafting plans in 1947 to freeze Jewish bank accounts, seize property, and intern Jews as enemy nationals. This is the real Nakba, a catastrophe born of pure anti-Semitism. In this JTV documentary, we'll journey country by country, from Baghdad to Cairo, from Sana'a to Tripoli, uncovering buried truths and survivor voices. And no, this isn't a tale of victimhood, it's a saga of endurance, courage, and triumph. Because the Jewish people didn't just survive this Nakba, we rebuilt, we came home. In Israel, our phoenix soared from the ashes. So buckle up and let's dive in. To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.